con el auspicio de Plenitud, Ciudad de la Alegría, hogarplenitud.org.es, Serenidad Spa Terapéutico, serenidad.es, Permasalud Glamping, permasalud.com.
Bienvenida, bienvenido a New Age. Hoy estaremos presentando una entrevista y un especial de música de Will Ackerman, fundador de la casa Windham Hill, uno de los sellos discográficos más importantes del New Age. Will nació en Alemania del Este en noviembre de 1949, pero fue adoptado por una pareja norteamericana a los 5 días de nacido que lo llevaron a Palo Alto, California. Su padre adoptivo fue un profesor de inglés de la Universidad de Stanford y su madre decidió tomar su vida cuando Will tenía apenas 12 años. A raíz de esto se fue a Massachusetts, en donde empieza a tocar la guitarra por la influencia de su vecino Michael Kilmartin. Regresó a Stanford para estudiar inglés e historia y justo antes de terminar la carrera la abandona y decidió hacerse carpintero, en donde le fue excelente y llegó a convertirse en contratista. Mientras estuvo en Stanford, dejó la guitarra eléctrica y empezó con la guitarra acústica, tocando en distintos lugares una música original que no tenía una etiqueta. Simplemente tocaba lo que le sonaba bien y descubrió que había algo mágico en la guitarra al entonarla de una manera distinta, hasta que se encontró con otros artistas que hacían algo parecido, como John Fahey y Robbie Basho de Tacoma Records. Aunque Will hacía entonaciones abiertas de mucho mayor rango, por lo que los amigos le sugirieron que haga un disco, que tenga un sello musical, y eso es lo que hizo. Con el apoyo de sus amigos logró imprimir el primer disco, que solo se vendía en la librería Plowshare de Palo Alto. Un día, saliendo de la librería, se topa con su antiguo vecino de Massachusetts, Michael, que le había introducido a la guitarra, y Will le lleva a la librería para obsequiarle su disco. Esa misma noche, Michael le llama a felicitar por el disco y le pidió que le dé 10 copias más del disco. Ahí se enteró de que su vecino era el encargado de promoción musical en radio para Fantasy Records, y sus discos fueron enviados a 10 radios prominentes en todo el país para que le den un espacio importante al disco. Al mismo tiempo, el primo de Will, Alex DeGrassi, que trabajaba con él como carpintero, también tocaba increíble la guitarra y le sugirió que haga un disco. Ahí fue que decidió llamar a su sello musical Windham Hill, ya que su compañía de construcción también se llamaba así. De ahí conoció a George Winston e hicieron el disco Autumn, que fue tremendo hit, y así continuó creciendo hasta hacerse el sello de música New Age más importante de su era. Tan así que llegó a tener 27 discos de oro y de platino. En 1992 se desvinculó del sello discográfico tras vender su parte a una multinacional y prosiguió su trayectoria en solitario. En 1993 fundó un nuevo sello discográfico y estudio de grabación en Vermont, llamado Imaginary Road Studios, con los que ha editado nuevas grabaciones de artistas de estilo musical similar al de la Windham Hill. Ha logrado 8 nominaciones Grammy, uno por el sampler de la Windham Hill de 1986, otro por el Winter Solstice de la Windham Hill, también por sus discos Sound of Wind Driven Rain, Hearing Voices, Meditations, Brothers y Positano Songs. Ganó un Grammy por su disco Returning. Así que hoy lo tenemos como invitado en el programa. La entrevista es en inglés y para el video hay subtítulos en español. Así es que si entiendes inglés, puedes escuchar el audio. Si quieres entender todo y no sabes inglés, pues espera al video de Vimeo. Esperamos que disfrutes la entrevista y también de la música.
Plenitud, Ciudad de la Alegría, hogar sustituto para adultos mayores. Contáctanos al 099-753-8085.
Este es el espacio de New Age.
So, welcome everybody to this interview. We have Will Ackerman. He is in the East Coast in the United States, and he has accepted to do this interview, something that would not be possible when I did the New Age show back in the 80s. But, this is just amazing, and we are very glad to have him with us today. And we will listen to music from basically almost all of his albums throughout the program. And so we're going to start now, and I'm going to welcome Will to the show and thank him for having accepted this interview. Okay, Will, so I'm just going to start from scratch in terms of your whole life's career. So I just want to, I wonder, as many of the audience wonders, what motivated you to become a musician when you were already succeeding in the building industry?
Well, music was always so incredibly important in my life. I mean, I know that there was a girl in elementary school, when we were 12 or 13 or something like that. And she used to call me Jazzbo because I was so crazy about music. It started for me, I think, with the Kingston Trio. Were you aware of the Kingston Trio at all?
No.
It was during the folk revival, and one of the biggest acts in America was the Kingston Trio, and they were at Stanford University where my father taught, and so they were very, very local. And I used to go see them at the little coffee house in Stanford University, and I think there was this huge lesson that I learned in this process, which is that musicians are not somewhere off, on the horizon. No, they're just people right next to you. And I think that's what allowed me to think, oh yeah, I could do a guitar record. Even if I remember when they said that I had to press 300 copies of the record, I thought, well, I'll have 200 of those in my closet for the rest of my life. But it didn't work out that way.
Oh, so you ended up dropping out of college, of University Stanford, and started doing your music, your record.
Really, in between that and the music, I mean, I always continued to play music, but I dropped out of Stanford with about less than a year to go, which is suicidal. But I knew that I didn't want to go into the family business, namely of being a professor. My mother had died. My father remarried. She had been the head of the English department at Smith and Radcliffe on the East Coast, and my father had been the head of the English department at Stanford University forever. And that was the only world that I really, really knew. And there's a point at which a young man thinks, I don't just want to do what was intended for me. And I went into the building profession, and I luckily met a Norwegian man named Osmund Hansen, who was a Norwegian boat builder turned ship's carpenter for the Norwegian Merchant Marine, and then on to being a general contractor in California. But I got to work under his guidance and became a very, very good, I hope, builder. And my business card actually read at one point, and I have a copy of it here somewhere, Windham Hill Builders /record/music BMI. I mean, that was still, it was what was making the money was building houses. And anyway, so my life has been kind of crazy. I'm supposed to be an academician. I left that. I was going to be a house builder for the rest of my life, and then that didn't happen because I just did this little tiny record, and then it just went crazy.
Yeah, from what I was reading, actually, it's through your friend Michael from Massachusetts that you gave him a copy of your In Search of the Turtle's Navel, and then he asked you for 10 more copies, and he sent them all around the radio stations in the U.S., and that was sort of like the beginning of creating Windham Hill?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this was actually in Palo Alto, California, though. I had left the East Coast after being in prep school there and then going to Stanford. At any rate, I had, again, Michael Kilmartin was everything to me. He was the kid next door. He was the older guy. He was really, really hip. He played football. I mean, everything about him was what you wanted to be as a boy. And there was a time I was in my house. Their house was next door, and I heard the sound of actually an electric guitar, and I'd never really heard that up close. And I, in those days, you never knocked on the door. You were neighbors, and you just went in through the door and then upstairs, and there's Michael playing a guitar, and I'm just amazed. I don't know, like 12 or something like that. And in that first moment, he said, "Oh, here, this is G, this is A minor," which still is my favorite two chords in the world. And so he taught me those first little things in guitar, and then really is what gave birth to my being a guitarist. So now a million years go by, and I have just brought out my first album, The Search for the Turtle's Navel. It was being sold at only one place in the world, which was the Plowshare Bookstore on University Avenue in Palo Alto. And I had just brought in another small pile of these records that were, on the counter as people came to buy their books. And I had done that. I turned out of the Plowshare Bookstore and walked up University Avenue, and there's Michael Kilmartin. I mean, I hadn't seen him for a billion years. And so I said, "Michael, you're the guy who first put a guitar in my hand, and I just did this little record, And so he, I gave him a copy. And later that night, he called me up on the phone. He said, "Will, this is really a good record. Can I have 10, 12 of these things?" And I said, "Of course." Now, this is so unbelievable. Even I can't believe it, but it's a true story. So he called me up probably a week later, or maybe 2 weeks. He said, "Will, so my business now is as a record producer, and I'm working for Fantasy Records." Now, understand that Creedence Clearwater Revival was, in that moment, the biggest act, at least in the United States. And here was the man who was in charge of promoting them. And again, they were monstrous. And he said, "Yeah, I sent these out to these radio stations, and by the way, they're all playing it, and most of them are listing it as heavy airplay, and you've got to get on the phone and thank them for their support." And I did that. And one of the calls was I was supposed to be talking to John Kurtzer at Kazam in Seattle. And I dutifully called the number, and I said, "Is John Kurtzer in?" And the man who answered said, "No, but I'm Jeff Hyman. I'm the assistant music director. How can I help you?" And I said, "Well, my name is Will Ackerman." And then he just said, "Who are you? There's this picture of a little girl on the cover. No one's ever heard of you. This is the biggest album that we are playing right now. The feedback from the people is insane. Everybody's calling this up all the time." He said, "What are you doing next Saturday?" And I said, "Well, nothing. What?" He said, come up. We'll do a radio interview." And I said, "Fine." All right. So this is insane. My cousin Alex DeGrassi and I drive up. It's about 1,000 miles north up to Seattle from the San Francisco Bay Area. And we got to the radio station, and Jeff and John were frantic. They're saying, "You're late." And I said, "I'm late for what?" And he said, "Well, you said you wanted to do a concert, so we put it on, and we're supposed to go play pretty soon." And so I followed them through Seattle, and I get somewhere. I get up on, they push me in, and I walk out on stage, and I'm in the Seattle Opera House, and it's sold out. Now, understand, I have not seen a penny for playing. I play in a little place at Stanford University, which is just this arches area outside, and I just love the sound there. So here's the first concert I've ever given in my life. It's 2,300 people, sold out at the Seattle Opera House.
Amazing.
And my cousin and I, because Alex DeGrassi, my cousin, was also in the building crew. And so, we were driving up there. And I got to the point where I said, "People, I don't know any more music. This is it. I'm out." But I said I could just play it all over again, because that was a joke. And they said, "Yeah, do that again. Play the whole thing again." And I said, "Look, my cousin Alex DeGrassi's right here. He plays better than I do. And Degrassi's on the side of the, stage, and he's going, no, 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 I don't want it. I don't want to do this at all. And I just said, Alex, these people want to hear you. And he did have his guitar with him, and he walked out and, of course, killed them. And as he walked off stage, he said, I think maybe I do want to do a record after all, But, for us to have played our first real concert for 2,300 people it's insane.
And so after that, I imagine with your cousin, you had the suggestions from your friends to help you to do the album, to do a record label, right? The Windham Hill. Oh, well, at first you didn't have the name, did you?
No. I mean, the wildest thought that I had at that time that I would ever sell the 300 records that I had to press. I expected 200 of them to be in my closet for the rest of my life. So when people give me credit for having envisioned, the enormity of Windham Hill, I mean, yes, as things happened, I mean, as it evolved, I think it's clear that I made some pretty good decisions. But really at that point, it was just, the impossibility of maybe selling 300 records.
Well, the 70s, 76, 70... when you had In Search of the Trails Navel, it was like a renaissance of music. When people started looking for acoustic music, far away from pop and rock and everything else, it was like a renaissance of music. And I think, it was just, we say, ring to the finger, like it was right on. Everything just happens for a reason, and it was just pure magic what unfolded from that. Because can you share maybe with us? I've never known how a record label works, but how was creating Windham Hill Records?
Well, again, please do not give me credit for having envisioned this. This is just one step after another. And as I said earlier, I really, really never believed that I would be able to get rid of 300 records. I mean, it seemed like that was the wildest possibility. But with Alex, then it was more than just me. And, we called it Windham Hill Records, and that's a long story. But I live here in Windham County, Vermont, by the way. But that is another story. So again, do not think that I envisioned this. This is just one step in front of the other. And, to have your cousin, Alex Degrassi, be there is a pretty lucky piece of information. But, then, I remember one night, Alex and I were playing a concert at McCabe's Guitar Shop in Santa Monica, California. And there was a man who came to the concert who I noticed was really enjoying the show. And his name was George Winston. And he said, and in those days I didn't, there you go. In those days, I didn't have I wasn't poor, but I wasn't rich. So I was very often staying on people's couches or something like that. And, George said, well, you could come stay at my house, if you want. It's a big couch. And I said, fine, I'll do that. And he said to me, Will, do you mind if I play the piano a little bit while you're going to sleep? And I said, yeah, of course, I'd love to hear it. And he played really what would become
Autumn,
his first album. Although he had done some transcriptions. I remember he had done some transcriptions of my music and a little bit of Alex, some parts of it. But he played these on the piano, and it was amazing. And then I was driving. He was driving me actually to the train station in Los Angeles to head back north. And I said, I think we should do a piano record with you. And he said, no, I really want to do the guitar album. And I said, well, no, I think we're going to do a piano record. And, he didn't fight the process too much. And the next thing you know, I'm recording Autumn with George Winston, which of course blew the doors open for us. I mean, suddenly we were a successful independent label, but then we turned into a very real record label. And shortly thereafter, every record company in the world wanted to distribute us, and it was fortuitous. It was luck. It was the right timing, and we were doing something that nobody else thought, and I didn't think you could make any money out of. But here, no, this audience was there, and they wanted it.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was lucky. I think it was the right timing, and you took the opportunity, and that's what you created was just the largest, the biggest new age house, new age label that we had back in the 70s, 80s. It was just amazing. So I would like to share with you, because, you guys sit and work and do your music and go to concerts, but sometimes you have no idea what's happening in the other side of the world or whatever regarding your music and what you have done. So this is, I want to share with you as brief as possible, like my history, because the audience also, the ones who listened to me back in the 80s in the show, and now they don't know this. But, okay, so I went to college in Colorado, in a very small town in Durango.
Oh, uh-huh.
And there was only one record one record store that sold, the stereo systems and music. And when I got there, I saw the cover of George Winston's Autumn, and I said, "Oh my God!" I picked it just because of the cover, and then I started listening. And then I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." I used to be a piano player myself, and so I said, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And then I started buying new age music, started collecting. I was a student, so I could buy maybe 2 records or 3 records a month. But I started collecting music from the Wingham Hill and, from Jean-Michel Jarre and American Gramophone. And I started collecting. And then when I came back to Ecuador in 85, I started working in a radio station. And I was a DJ. And by 1987, they gave me a schedule from 7 to 10 in the morning on Sunday. And so I deliberately took that schedule, because from 7 to 8, though it was like a pop, rock, radio, Latin music, but we were beginning. The radio station was beginning. So from 7 to 8, I started putting new age music. I started putting new age music on that span of time, on that hour. And suddenly people start calling me, "Oh, I like this, oh my God, what is this, what is that?" And I said, "I can't believe it." So I decided to do the radio show in 88. We started March 88. And I said, well, maybe I can get some promo material. I don't know how, back in the 80s, snail mail, everything was slower, everything was different. So I wrote to snail mail. I wrote some letters to Wingham Hill, Narada Music, Private Music, some labels. And immediately I was astounded, because I was in Ecuador. I mean, how are they going to send me LPs? But they sent me promo material, LPs, and not only that, I had all the information, how Wingham Hill was created, with Anne McGilvray back then, and everything, all the information. I said, oh my God, this is just amazing. And I would receive, most of the records arrived very healthy, very wonderful. Sometimes some of them broke. I even received the Rabbit Ears albums. So it's amazing. For some years. Then I went back in the 90s, I don't remember when, 91. I went back to Berkeley to study alternative healing. And as I came back, the last album I received in promo material was Night Noise, one of Night Noise albums, The Parting Tide. That was the last album I received, because I told them I was going to study, and then when I came back, I would continue with the radio show. And something magical happened after I came back and started my radio show. I went to a concert of Kitaro and John Anderson in Berkeley. And then I said, oh my God, I wanna interview John Anderson. Oh my God, I wanna interview this guy, because it was like, oh my God, it was my my hero with Yes and everything, Vangelis. And so I knew when I was coming back to Ecuador that he was going to make an album. I just didn't know what album, what kind of music, and with whom he was going to record. And suddenly, when I go back to visit my friends in San Francisco, William Hill had moved to Palo Alto. Yeah, I think it was
no, started in Palo Alto.
Yeah, but they have moved to LA or something, and they came back to Palo Alto. Or I at least it was in Palo Alto. It was always in Palo Alto.
It started in Palo Alto, and then the second office was with Jeff Hyman up in Seattle because we were doing so much with Kazam and Kink and the rest of those going down, and then later LA.
Oh, okay. So in the 90s, early 90s, I went back and I called William Hill because of the Palo Alto. I was in San Francisco, and your promo manager tells me, "Oh, you're from Ecuador. Oh, that's nice. Come and I'm going to give you some promo material." And when I went there, he was filling me up with all these records. And suddenly I see a poster of John Anderson. I says, "Wow, what is he doing here?" I says, "Don't you know, we have his latest album, Deseo, is through William Hill." And I go, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." And I said, "Please, you got to give me one of those albums." "Yeah, you already have it there." And I says, and he knew I was going back to Ecuador. And he says, "Oh, how sad that you're going back to Ecuador because we could have sent you to LA where he lived in Pacific Palisades for an interview because we need somebody to interview him." And I go, "Oh my God." I saw like a vision of me interviewing him on the dream I had a year before. And I said, "Okay, I'm saying. And so I went to Pacific Palisades to his house and I interviewed him for the album Deseo. And so, William Hill has always been in my life in a very special way, in amazing ways. So the musicians, the music has always been part of the show, no matter if it was back then. And then I stopped my show in 2003, and then I retook the show just last month because there's a need. We are again needing, and I will let you know about it later, but there's a need for this and all the awareness that this kind of music can help us tap into ourselves. So I just wanted to share with you that story because I'm sure you would never know what has the consequences of having William Hill around the world and how it has reached. Because here in this country, I was the one in charge of, we were a pioneer New Age radio show in Ecuador in the 80s. And there was no association whatsoever with the yuppies or with anything. It was just people from all levels, economic levels and education levels, loved it. So the music here was channeled to music lovers and people who connected with it. There were no labels that took this way or that way to the public. It was, you love it, this is for you. It was amazing. It was a great experience to do it back then. So I wanted to let you know because it was, you need to hear these kinds of things to know how big was what you actually did, even though it was a step-by-step, spur of the moment thing, but it was something really, really big, William. And for that, I'm so grateful. And I was so happy that you accepted this interview.
Well, I remain incredibly amazed by what happened. I mean, again, it was not something that I envisioned, and in many respects, I can't really take credit for it because it was the people, who heard this music and made us the label that we became. It could have been just a little tiny thing that a few people heard, but the radio stations, but it was the people, it was the listeners who were turning on to other people. But you see, I'm saying it was so organic.
Yeah.
It was not. We didn't buy it. We were hanging on to the tail. Just with the growth of it, the rest of it. It was as surprising to me as it could have been, to anyone. But because of, and I'm not saying this, but really, I am grateful to you. I am grateful to the people at Kazam Radio and Kink in Portland, CAS and Cambridge, Mass. I mean, all these people gathered around this thing and promoted it, and the people responded. The listeners responded because there wasn't anything quite like it.
Nothing.
And again, the reason for that is that nobody thought you could make money doing what we were doing. It was not for the money. It was not. It truly
It was the
wasn't.
heart.
And absolutely, absolutely. There was never, oh, I'm going to have this huge record label. We're going to play Carnegie Hall. We're going to play Montreux Jazz Festival. No, none of that. Absolutely none of that. But I think that's why it worked. It was honest, and it was
Heartfelt.
heartfelt. There you are. I said the same words at the same time. Good. Thank you very much. But yes, it was heart, and the people responded, and thank you very much for all the people.
It's a two-way street, and it had to happen. It was just there was no way this could have not happened. So you were the channel, and we are all very thankful for. I understand what you're saying, that you cannot take credit, but when you think about it, and it was just something that you channeled, and it was amazing. So you can carry that for the rest of your life, knowing that it was just amazing.
Well, I suppose if I had been chasing economics, if I was chasing success, I probably it wouldn't have been successful.
Yeah. And that's why
this,
I think that's why the word that we both said at the same time. I think that's why something's happening now. The world is chaotic. But these heartfelt situations are needed now. So that's why I doing again the show, and I think it's the energy around this kind of music that you are creating still now is needed, very much needed, because it's way too crazy what's happening in the world right now.
yeah,
So
I
why
agree.
don't we go and listen to some music before we continue? Okay, we're going to I'm going to present Gazos from your 1976 In Search of the Turtle's Navel, and from the 1977 It Takes a Year. We're going to listen to a Bricklayer's Beautiful Daughter and Rain Sequence. Okay, let's listen to the music, and we'll be back with this dialogue with Will Ackerman.
Permasalud Glamping Lodge te espera en la provincia de Imbabura, en Ecuador, para que te conectes con la naturaleza, recuperes energía y bienestar. Te ofrecemos domos full equipados y carpas de glamping con toda comodidad. Escoge entre paquetes básicos de estadía y paquetes completos que incluyen desayuno y acceso al área de nuestra piscina natural con baño turco e hidromasaje. ¿Necesitas un espacio de paz y tranquilidad? Entonces este es el lugar preciso. Visita nuestra web permasalud.com o envíanos un mensaje de WhatsApp al 0999-203-203.
Abre las puertas de tu mundo interior y permanece con New Age.
We're back with Will, and I'm going to keep asking some more questions before we listen to some more music. I wanted to ask you something, Will. In what way your life's experience up until that moment shaped the music of your first albums? Do you believe that your inspiration came from the spur of the moment, or was it rather something that was shaped by your life's experiences, your life's path situations, and how did it come about?
Well, I think one of the reasons it worked is because nobody would have thought that it could be successful. I mean, it was sincere. It came from the heart. And it was not some guy trying to become famous. It was just a guy who's sitting at home playing the guitar and coming up with a few songs. I don't know how far I want to go into it, but the impending death of the Virgin Spirit. It's a very ponderous name, but it is about the night before my mother committed suicide. And I'm channeling this stuff. I am trying to express without tears, without feeling sorry for myself. Um, but these feelings, they are what make up our lives. And thank God, there's also tremendous joy. But I feel that you have to acknowledge, the parts that are not beautiful, the parts that are very, very difficult. And I know that the reason I was writing music was because it was healing in some respect. And the fact that there were so many other people in the world at that time who were feeling much the same thing. And it was, we were just very lucky. We were the ones who picked up the little tiny flag and waved it, and a few people, noticed it, and the radio station started playing it, and then we're playing Carnegie Hall and all the rest of it. But again, and I know I'm being redundant, but the fact is, the reason it worked is because it was sincere, and because it was not trying to become a big commercial entity. The fact that it did become that is only in following the sincerity and the truth of what we were doing.
So you play the guitar doing some intonations? Is that what they're called? You tone
tunings.
Different tunings. How did you discover these different ways of playing the guitar from what was accustomed? So
where were we?
About your tuning the guitar. How did you discover you can do something different from what was like the norm back then? Because there were other people who were doing different tonings, but you expanded on that.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few relatively standard open tunings. So a lot of the blues players and people who were doing slide music and the rest of it, and a lot of that being really folk traditions and a lot of black folk tradition as well. I never made a decision about what I'm going to do is invent 83 new tunings. I mean, that was not it. And frankly, I'm still kind of confused about why I did that. And I this is only in hindsight, but I really think that what I was trying to do was to eliminate the frontal lobes of the brain entirely, because I didn't know where I was. I was in the desert. I was on the ocean. I was wherever I was, but I didn't have anything but heart to guide me. And I do believe it's a trick I played on myself to eliminate thought. That heart and feeling was going to be the point. Yes, I mean, Alex DeGrassi, my cousin, unbelievable player, and then Michael Hedges, one of the great innovators of any guitar playing in the world. But they were all doing what what I wanted, namely, this is music of the heart. And yeah, you can play as complex as you want, yes or no, but that you could have both, that you could have the innovator of Michael Hedges and the skill of my cousin Alex DeGrassi. I mean, we were a family. We really were a family. And when we toured as evenings with Windham Hill, and we were all just buddies. And Liz is another buddy. But and we were just backstage. We're just messing around, playing things. And there's another song that we could record. It was all the point is that it was innocent. Mm-hmm. It was not chasing money. It was not chasing fame, which is precisely why it became famous and commercially successful.
Yeah, but how I was wondering how did you come up with recruiting such musicians as Michael Hedges, as Liz Story, Night Noise, Shadowfax, and Michael Manring, who's gonna be on the show soon. He's coming. I'm gonna interview him as well. So. You had such an amazing group of musicians that were doing their thing, contributing to the label. But how did you gather together all these amazing musicians, Billy Oskay and, all of them?
In some cases, it was being in touch with the radio stations, and in some cases, people's music were being played by small FM radio stations, but I would hear about it. But I think for the most part, somebody would send me a short demo of something, because they felt that Liz could fit in the label. Of course she could. But we had our own beacon on at that point. We were a pretty bright light, and musicians from around the world were, writing to us, from Germany especially, Japan to some large degree. And the explosion of Windham Hill's success in America was, Japan actually per capita was the biggest market for us in the world. We were huge. I was playing, and I would do private concerts at the Imperial Palace, Prince and Princess Takamado. It's so incredible at this point in my life. And I look back and I can't even believe the story in some respects. It was so blessed and it was so powerful. And I wish I could tell you this, I invented, I did all this. No, I planted a seed, and then people watered it and it turned into a really big tree. And,
but you expanded. You expanded just beyond the music for in the new age music. Because I remember buying the DVDs. No, I'm sorry, VHS. The VHS on Tibet, China, the seasons with the music of your musicians, and also the Rabbit Ear Productions from with. How did you come to connect with Jeremy Irons, Meryl Streep, so many amazing actors doing the reading from the storytelling, with obviously the music from the Windham Hill musicians? How did that come about?
But I understand that in terms of Rabbit Ears and the rest of it, we were a distributor of that, but we were not. I was not producing.
Okay.
Those people knew what they were doing. I'm not going to tell them what to do.
Okay.
But we loved the quality of it. We loved the intelligence of it, and it was unique. And so, if it's unique and I like it, and even if it isn't Windham Hill, it's something that should be promoted. It's something that we can help with. And it worked.
Yeah, I still have the VHS tapes from those days. They were just mesmerizing. I remember putting China, I think it was, and listening to Tim Story's music or the whole video with the culture that you were letting us, the rest of the people, know with such an amazing music. It was very, very, powerful. I could see it and watch, 1 time a week for a while, and it was like, oh, this is so amazing. So, having the vision, or even if it was yours or just the label from other people working with you, that was really, really, really a great option to offer people, the seasons with music. It was great. It was really good. So
we had established a reputation, and we guarded it very, very carefully.
How do you feel the Windham Hill label was seen by the other record labels of new age music? Was it like an example, or what? How do you feel about that?
I think pretty much every major label in America wanted to emulate what Windham Hill was doing. The trouble is they didn't understand that it required heart, and so pretty much every major record label came up with, and they all fell flat. I can't say that it was all, horrible or anything like that, but we were still there after this enormous explosion, and we were still the ones who were making our decision on heart. And if you don't have something really important to say in your spirit, in your heart, I don't care how good a player you are. And I think a lot of the labels thought, we just get this person who's just banging the hell out of this, like Michael Hedges, except there's nothing there at the heart of it. so I don't know if that's answering your question, but please make sure that you understand, that everybody who's listening to this understands that Will Ackerman did not envision this. Will Ackerman took one step in front of the other from another, and it was a bunch of binary decisions he made. Yes, no. And the net result was my instincts worked. Thank you very much.
It is clear. It is very clear, and I really know what I can hear you. I hear exactly what you're saying. And sometimes it became so big that it was just like, it's difficult to kind of accept it or feel it, like, oh my God, what have I created, this amazing thing? And mainly how it was received by the world. This is a two-way street. So, it was what we needed, and you took the perfect moment to do it. So it was amazing. It was great. So everything that you kept doing with your productions, like, it was with your own albums, it was really amazing.
It was true.
Mm-hmm.
It was true.
Yeah.
It was not we're chasing something or we're trying to sound like somebody else. No, it's just here. This is our heart.
Yeah.
This is Michael's heart. This is Shadowfax. This is, Alex DeGrassi, my cousin. That's why it worked.
Mm-hmm.
We're not chasing anything. We're just saying what we're feeling in our hearts.
Yeah.
And that sincerity is precisely why it worked.
Okay, so now we're going to play two songs from your 1979 album, Childhood in Memory. And from 1981 album Passage, we chose Anne's Song, that I imagine it's related to Anne McGilvray, who was with you at the beginning of the creation of Wingham Hill. So we're gonna share those songs, and we'll be back with some more questions.
Very good.
Con el auspicio de Plenitud, Ciudad de la Alegría, hogarplenitud.org.es, Serenidad Spa Terapéutico, serenidad.es, Permasalud Glamping, permasalud.com.
Respira profundo y fluye con New Age.
Did you mostly preferred doing guitar solos, or did you gather with musicians for gigs and inspiration for your new music?
It seems like there was two questions in there. Understand that in terms of my writing, I never think about it. I'm not looking for anything. I'm just sitting there waiting for something to come through the fingers and the heart, and something emerges. And sometimes I sit down and hold the guitar. I mean, I've got one sitting over here, and I pick it up. And last night I just worked, and I'm actually getting chills thinking about it. I just came up with this incredibly cool thumb over on the neck thing that I'm still writing music, still having fun. And I guess I maybe am getting far afield again. So bring me back. Tell me. I think there were a number of things.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering, if you just prefer doing your guitar solos, or did you also gather together with other musicians to do some improvisations, gigs, and then suddenly you felt, oh my God, this would be good for my new song or whatever?
Yeah, I think yes, of course, and having those brilliant players at my that I could reach out to. George Winston, Liz Story. It doesn't have to be guitars. Chuck Greenberg playing the Lyricon for Shadowfax. So there were these guys. And so when we went on tour, of course, we had all these different sounds. And at first people were like, well, I thought this was a guitar label. No, it's not a guitar label. It's a feeling. It's the heart. And I don't care whether it's expressed through voice or through guitar or piano, I don't care. As long as it's speaking the truth and it is connected to the heart, it can be on Windham Hill.
Mm-hmm. Well, in your album Past Light, I believe it's the first album to include other artists.
I don't know. I don't listen to. I don't think so. I think there were collaborations before that.
Okay.
But I don't again. I don't listen to my own music, so I don't know.
Yeah, I know how that goes. Well, but do you feel that the input of these other musicians enriched your work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I could never emulate, for instance, what Michael Hedges did, but I began, doing less solo work and playing with people who were on the label. Again, like Chuck Greenberg from Shadowfax. I mean, I was borrowing Liz Story. We were a team.
Family,
Well, even better. Thank you.
like a family, right?
But we're on tour, right? And you go into sound check, and the next thing Liz is playing a little piano behind what you're doing. I'm actually getting chills right now. And we were kids in sandboxes. We were just playing. We were having fun.
Yeah.
And again, I'm getting chills. We were so lucky. We got to just do whatever we wanted, and thank God people were there willing to listen. We were rewarded for being children in sandboxes. We were just playing and having fun.
How fun. When you sit with your guitar, do you feel like the guitar is an extension of yourself? Like you're playing and just it's a heartfelt, and you just go with your fingers, and the guitar becomes part of the whole thing of who you are?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I certainly accept it now. And as a matter of fact, I mean, here, all right, so here, last night, this is how I write music.
Numbers.
Yeah.
How cool.
I don't read music, so I've created my own writing of music. But this is a piece that I'm working on right now, and I've got a number of them on here. I think I'm getting pretty close to doing a new album, but I had to invent my own way of writing music. I mean, I guess I could have taken time to actually go back to school and figure out the other stuff, but once again, I did something that's Will Ackerman instead of, whatever else it might be. But yeah, I've had this beautiful Taylor 724 that Bob Taylor gave me. And I was in England for a month and began writing. So I've got a whole new collection of music. I've actually started. I imagine I'll have a new album out within, I'm thinking 4 months or something.
Amazing. That's great. Like, since we're going like historically from the past all the way to Positano songs, wow, all the way.
Yeah, we froze again.
Synopsis 2, which is in your Past Light album, has Russell Walder in the oboe and Ira Stein in piano. It's an exquisite tune. I mean, did you compose every part of the, like every instrument, or like do they bring...
Oh no, every player on Windham Hill, they brought it to the table. I might have polished it, I might have made a couple of suggestions, but basically, no, it's this is what they bring to it. And why would I mess with it in any big way? I mean, they're moving me. I mean, hearing Liz, of course, George Winston, or Michael Hedges. I mean, he's my cousin, Alex DeGrassi. I mean,
I hope you give me the contact for Alex. I would very much love to interview him as well.
Oh, absolutely. Just let me know, and I'll make that happen.
Yeah, I'll write Susan. I'll write.
Okay, yeah. Susan. That's much smarter. It's right, Susan.
Great. So,
by the way, she's finishing up her own album.
Oh, she's what kind of instrument she plays?
She's a vocalist.
Oh, neat.
She has gone by the name of Noah Wilding, and she and Tom Eaton, my engineer, and dear friend, they're working on her record, and I've been given little tiny snippets of what they're doing so that I can't go in there and mess with what they're doing. And I love it that Susan is like, no, this is mine. Get out.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad.
She's a powerful woman, and I love that.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad that you guys are together now. Okay, so let's listen from Past Light. We're going to listen to 3 songs actually. Visiting, Ventana, and Synopsis too. How do you like those songs? You remember them? I hope you remember them.
Yeah, one I don't listen to it, but actually I think I could hum one of those. But
Which one?
You said
Visiting, Ventana?
Visiting for sure. Ventana, I don't think I ever played that in concert. For some reason it never made. But Visiting was a huge part of my touring too.
And Synopsis too.
A complete improv that I never. It was, but it had a foundation.
Yeah, it was sort of like
exactly.
minimalist. Yeah, amazing. You had some tunes, some songs of yours were like very minimalist and they were just mesmerizing because of the repetition, and it was like, oh my god. So
yeah. I wish I could tell you exactly, where that inspiration came from, but minimalism was the answer to it, obviously.
Yeah. So you listened to some Steve Reich before that?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those songs are just amazing. That's from Past Light, and then we will go on and listen to some other music. But I have some more questions for you. Is that okay?
I'm having a wonderful time. Yes.
Good. Okay, so let's go ahead and listen to some music, and we'll be back with Will with some more questions.
Plenitud, Ciudad de la Alegría, hogar sustituto para adultos mayores. Contáctanos al 099-753-8085.
Estás escuchando New Age, el programa de la nueva era.
Okay, we're back with Will, and now I want to talk about Conferring with the Moon. I went through and I have a big collection of your music, but since I moved out from my place, I had it all in boxes and I couldn't find all of the albums, but I have them here with me, you see, some of them, and I have some more, but in the box. So, Conferring with the Moon, in this album you have a piece that's dear to us Latin Americans, which is the Andean people, which is Lago de Montañas, Mountain Lake, that you played with Enrique Cruz.
Yes, Kike.
Kike, yeah. How did you connect to, if you remember, because so far long ways ago, how do you connect to the Lake Mountain spirit to bring us such a delightful piece with Enrique Cruz? You played the charango, didn't you?
Yes, I still have the charango. I haven't used it enough of late, but I actually had it in my hand, I think, last week. And it's a sound that once I reacquainted myself with it, I thought, yeah, well, I mean, why have I not gone back to that? So I may be doing some of that too. That's funny you should bring that up because it's something that had been absent in my life for so long. But there, it sits over here, right? And then, well, why don't you pick it up? It's not just there for decoration, but I have been picking it up.
Oh yeah, charango has a very special sound to it. It's like for Andean people that we listen to it a lot. It's very heartfelt. It's really a beautiful instrument.
Yeah, I'd lost track of it, but it's on a stand. Actually, it's on a stand in the studio right now because that gets me closer to actually recording it. But yeah, what an incredible sound.
Mm-hmm. So you have a very interesting way of naming your songs. I mean, there's one that's Climbing in Geometry, but there is from one of your latest albums, there's a song that it's like very long name. I will remember which one it is, but like Climbing in Geometry. What is Climbing in Geometry all about? Because this is another minimalist song in your guitar that had also amazing artists like Charlie Bisharat on the violin and Ira Stein on the piano and Michael Mandring on bass. This is another delicacy to the ears. I mean, so how do you go about naming your songs? I mean, Climbing in Geometry. That's what an amazing idea.
Not that I would say that the Sierra Nevada mountains in California saved my life. After my mother's suicide, I was taken up to the high Sierras with a man who was in the English department with my father. As a matter of fact, only yesterday I was looking at, or the day before maybe, looking at the history of Bill Wyman. But Bill Wyman ran these trips into the high Sierra in the summer. And we actually, those who went on that actually worked as slaves, but lovely work, working on trail maintenance and building in the high country of Yosemite and Stanislaus National Forest. So here we are, young kids. There's no electricity anywhere. There's, you go to bed when it's dark, and but that was after, and this is after my mother's suicide. I mean,
you were 12, right? You were very young when she died.
Yeah. And unfortunately I found her hanging in the shower. So that's something that I had to
process,
exercise. And the impending death of the Virgin Spirit is that. I mean, that was the end of my childhood. That was the end of, and I'm going to cry now. It was the end of my innocence, my childhood innocence. You find your mother hanging in the shower.
So tough.
Yeah. The impending death of the Virgin Spirit, the night before my life completely changed.
Wow.
I've seen, I've seen some hard things in my life, and we all do. Come on, let's be honest. Maybe not as bad as a mother hanging herself, but we all suffer, we all hurt, we all have loss. But I have managed to channel that into something that now goes through my heart, as opposed to my brain. I need to express what the heart is feeling and do the best I can.
Well, thank you for sharing, because that's something so deep and intimate. And I was, when I was listening to your first albums, and I was feeling a melancholic sound to it, and I imagine it had to do with all that you had lived, and so it's doing music. It's so healing anyway, because you were able to process and you are this far. You are here and you are this far and doing amazing things still.
I would argue that whether my music was heard by a group of people outside of me, but just itself was arguably enough. I mean, I got to express, I got to deal with the feelings. I haven't talked about this really in an interview, but there's some other really dark stuff. I have a well of sadness and hurt that I can draw upon, and clearly, I think that from this. And I'm not a person who's always sad, and yet that's always in me. And there are times where it just needs to be said, and I say it in music. And that's why my music, I mean, there are some pieces of mine that are fun and energetic, but there's a melancholy in what I do, and it's inevitably going to be that, simply because, it is deeply, in me.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing, and that you're able to talk about it too, not only go through your guitar, but able to express it as well. So.
But I've had decades upon decades of therapy with mostly really, really talented women, Tracy and Sally, and there are a number of people who
have helped on the way.
And I've worked with male therapists as well, but it doesn't work. For some reason it has to be a woman. I don't know why, but I would argue, I don't think I would have jumped off a building or anything, but I don't know that I would have been the productive person I am without their help. Tremendous amount of help.
I'm glad to hear that. So let's talk about, this. You have a song that's called "The Prospect of Darrow's Barn and the Blossoms of an Apple Spring" that are on the imaginary road. I think those are some songs, like what I was saying. You have an amazing creativity to name the songs because, when
we froze again.
What I was saying is like you have such a creative way of putting names to the songs, and since they are like mostly we have the Voices album, but most of your albums are instrumental. How do the names come about? Because if you are writing some song, then you can choose from the idea of the song, but in instrumental music, such the prospect of Darrow's Barn and
all I can do is borrow from what I am doing at the time that something is written. I don't pretend that I sat down to try to write a song about Darrow's Barn. I made a piece of music, but I had been working for the Darrows at their huge orchard. I mean, they have apple orchards that go for miles and miles and miles. So I tried to look at what I was doing at the time that I write something, and try to come up with something that I think is applicable to the sound of that. Mm-hmm. It's guesswork in most cases, although there are times where I very purposefully try to express something. Generally speaking, however, this music comes through me, and then I try to figure out where the hell it came from. Mm-hmm. But there are times where I've written something that was very purposefully because of a thought or feeling I had.
Oh, great! I was just so contemplating the titles of your songs and saying, wow, such creativity to name songs. It's like. It was beautiful. So thanks for sharing that. Now,
how about the second great torsion bar overland of West Townsend, Vermont, Jose Pepsi attending a horror story of mental fatigue and intoxication, where a maddened Pepsi salesman is coerced in the abandonment of all ethical standards and truck. Oh God, I lost the part of it. But that actually was a time I found a second home at Windham Hill Farm, which was originally a Vermont apple farm, but it had been bought by Hugh and Mary Folsom, and they had created Windham Hill Inn just up the road from here, about 40 minutes. And really, it had become a home for me. After my mother's death, my father remarried. I was sent to school on the East Coast, and I was dating a girl named Kate, who I stay in touch with, by the way, who said to me, "I think I know where we can get a room for the weekend together." Now, come on, we're 16, and this is like, okay, that's 17 Christmases right there. A girl says she knows where we can get a room for the weekend. And we ended up meeting down in Brattleboro, Vermont, and hitchhiking up the road to Windham Hill Farm, Windham Hill Inn. And we just walked in the door, and Hugh looked at Kate, who's just the daughter of some her parents that would stay there. And she said, "Well, Kate, what are you doing here?" And she said, "Well, me and my boyfriend thought maybe we could just come and stay for the weekend or something." And he said, "Yeah, you can have the North Room." And I'm going, I'm 16 and I was just given a room with a girl. This is really a place I like. But Hugh and Mary, in some respects, really became my family. I mean, my father had remarried, and I didn't have any. I barely had any involvement in that. But I found a home at Windham Hill, which is why my business card read Windham Hill Builders records. Everything that was important to me was Windham Hill. And it's actually just a place that's up the road about 30 minutes.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. How cool. Yeah. Okay, so let's listen now. From your 1986 album, Conferring with the Moon, we're going to listen to Lago de Montañas and Climbing in Geometry. And from 1988, Imagery Roads, we'll have the Prospect of Darrow's Barn, and Brother A Teaches 7 with Charlie Bicharach and Michael Manring. That's
Alaudin Matthew, who is Brother A in that. I was playing a guitar piece for him, and he kept slapping my hand, and he would slap my hand again, then he'd slap my hand again, and he just said, "See, you don't have to do 4/4. If you just stop there, you've got a 3." And it's like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. But that's Brother A Teaches 7, and because I was going to a 7-chord pattern and not an 8-chord pattern.
Oh, amazing. I was wondering, it's like Brother A. I had to reread several times because I was putting Brother 7 Teaches A, or then, it crossed. No, it's Brother A Teaches 7. I was wondering what it was all about, but thank you.
Yeah, it's Alaudin Matthew, a wonderful piano player. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, well, listen to the music and we'll be back with Will.
Permasalud Glamping Lodge te espera en la provincia de Imbabura, en Ecuador, para que te conectes con la naturaleza, recuperes energía y bienestar. Te ofrecemos domos full equipados y carpas de glamping con toda comodidad. Escoge entre paquetes básicos de estadía y paquetes completos que incluyen desayuno y acceso al área de nuestra piscina natural con baño turco e hidromasaje. ¿Necesitas un espacio de paz y tranquilidad? Entonces, este es el lugar preciso. Visita nuestra web permasalud.com o envíanos un mensaje de WhatsApp al 0999-203-203.
Este es el espacio de New Age.
Okay, so let's see. Now we're going to go into something that I want to talk about with you because I want to see if the feeling is more or less the same. I was wondering what happened to the New Age boom that happened in the 80s and 90s, because at the turn of the century, it started like a downfall. I don't know what your feeling was about it, but like things started drifting. You sold Windham Hill in 92, right. But it's like something happened with the New Age. I mean, the 70s, 80s, 90s. I mean, it was so big and so amazing, but suddenly it started drifting and fading away. What happened? What was your feeling? Am I wrong, maybe, or did it really actually happen?
Well, I don't know that anything can last forever, and I think part of what happened, and maybe this is being cynical, and I apologize if that's the case, but I think that so many record labels, major record labels, created what they thought was a New Age label. That their thought was, and I've actually heard this from a couple of executives, that if Windham Hill could sell X number of records, they could sell 10 times as many records, without their understanding that there has to be some deep emotional core to it. If you don't have anything to say, people aren't going to care. And so they flooded the market with what I refer to as undifferentiated product. It was just put a picture of nature on the cover and get some guy to play the piano, and that's all you have to do. And that cynicism is what I wouldn't say. I mean, it doomed what they were doing from the very beginning because it had no substance. So there was this, and then I think there was a terrible kickback from that. I mean, I think that the name New Age became sullied. It actually had. I was never that thrilled with it, but okay, I'll go with it. But at least at its core, it was people talking and feeling about heart and how you live and appreciate the beauty of nature, et cetera, et cetera. But these labels just jumped in and said, okay, we got to do. I actually had a guy tell me. He said, look, Will, I had turned them down for distribution, and he said, Will, all I have to do is get a piano player and put a lot of white on the cover, and we'll. I said, yeah, go ahead. And then they flooded the market with this stuff, which was mostly crap, and destroyed the movement in the process. But all things pass, and maybe it was time, to say, oh yeah, we did this. This is great, and that was our time. Fine. And I've never felt, oh, I wanted to hold on to that forever. No, we had fun. We did what we did, and it was honest.
Yeah.
And and then it became a marketing thing. And though we stayed, I completely believe, very sincerely, nonetheless, we were lost in that whole movement, to exploit this name and this concept without there having any understanding of what the hell made it happen in the first place.
Yeah. Well, then the heart was gone. That's what made the difference. And now that you mention, exactly the money and the heart. Yeah, it makes sense because you have no idea what it was for me. I had to let my show die in 2003. I think I told you, and I could not hold it. I could not keep it because it was mainly New Age, but we had Celtic music and we have world music, and it was. But I could not. It had to die with the name. I came doing another show called Reflections, like, from reflectioning, contemplation, but it was not the same. Okay, so something happened to the musical industry. There was no heart, and I had to let my show die. And that was 2003, and this year again something happened, something shifted. I'm pretty much a follower of the energy that I had to redo the show with the same name, New Age. It just came back with New Age again. And so I believe, there's no coincidences. I had the impulse to do it, and I understand there's a reason. And I believe that the reason is that we need this kind of music and spirit back again on our lives. But because the music industry became so corrupted, really corrupted. And in our case, in our societies where this music style called reggaeton, it's the worst music style in the world, and they named this guy the king of pop instead of Michael Jackson. I says now it's like, no, this is corruption. This cannot be possible. And so it was one thing when we had the LPs, the albums. That era was amazing, and then we changed to the CDs, which was okay, and then we went through to the MP3s, and after that, something also changed. Because you're not selling albums anymore like LPs or even CDs. Now it's the MP3. How was that change? How was that shift for you in terms of as a musician? In what way impacted your artistry?
Well, those changes have been taking place for quite some time. Although I do agree with you that it accelerated tremendously and completely changed the entire landscape. I'm sad that there aren't more outlets for really talented people these days. Thank God, I'm still finding people to work with. Or to produce, and they're as talented as any of the people at Windham Hill, and yet there's really no outlet at this point. You're not going to sell CDs or LPs anymore. I mean, maybe a few here and there. It's all about singles, and hopefully it adds up to enough money to pay the rent. But it's a tough time for musicians, I think, and when people come to me and play me some of their music and ask if I'd be willing to produce them, I'm happy to produce them, but I also tell them the truth that it's going to take an awful lot of attention and probably money to be able to to be really heard. I mean, thank God, for John DiLiberto and a handful of people who are still creating an outlet for new and up and coming musicians. I wish there were more of them. I've debated the notion of doing that myself, but frankly, I've just got too much, in my life already. And I'm approaching 77. I can't believe it myself. And Susan is always, it's like, you can slow down now. You can, you don't have to prove anything. You're just, but there are times where I was like, damn it, I'm going to go out there and, hammer something out and, do something good for the musicians. I'm not sure that I have the strength, emotionally, physically, or realistically, but, thank God I still am finding people who really inspire me and I get to work with. And
that's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Well, we're going to listen to some songs from your 1992 album, Opening Doors. I think it's Happy Home in Kathmandu. And from 1998, The Sound of Wind-Driven Rain. We'll listen to Driving. And also, we have something from Hearing Voices. Song Briars Above the Well.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Briars Above the Well. Yeah, great. So we'll listen to that, and we have a couple more questions, and that will do.
Con el auspicio de Plenitud, Ciudad de la Alegría, hogarplenitud.org.es, Serenidad Spa Terapéutico, serenidad.es, Permasalud Glamping, permasalud.com.
Abre las puertas de tu mundo interior y permanece con New Age.
Oh, we're back here. I hope you're enjoying the show, the music, the content, the interview with Will. And now we're coming to Hearing Voices, which had an interesting shift when you included voices to your album. What made you try an album with voices?
Well, I mean, I of course I don't listen just to instrumental music, and I thought, well, come on, a voice doesn't have to be something that has lyrics. It could be vocalese. It can be something that the voice can be an instrument, which it is in fact anyway. But in terms of how it would work in terms of the sort of thing that I produce. So hey, yeah, look, let's see what this guitar can do with people's voices. Not necessarily, with a lyric content, but the sound of the human voice. I mean, that's the original instrument. And I love that record, and it actually did quite well. Some people were surprised that it was what the title said it was, but and frankly, it was that which brought me to my wife, because I met her in trying to do something with voice, and I fell in love with her, and there you are.
Oh, amazing! How long have you been together?
Forever.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Can you really take? I can't. There are a few dates that I have in my mind, but time at this age. What's time? I mean,
doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't even pay attention. All I know is that I met this really, really lovely woman, and she came to sing, and I fell in love with her. Unfortunately, I was married at the time. That's never easy, and rather expensive, I will add. A very talented woman. I still think she's the best. I mean, my favorite living painter, an artist. But anyway, thank God Susan puts up with me, and I know I'm happy, and I guess she's happy enough. She hasn't left yet.
That's great. Well, let's see. We're going to listen now to songs from your 2010 New England Roads album.
Yeah.
I chose for John Hannah, though I never met him, and Walk With Me. John Hannah.
John Hannah is a actor who was never a massively famous guy, but I had seen some of his work, and I wrote him. I just said, you've really touched me. And we had this lovely little conversation, and so I thought, well, I just named this thing after John. I guess I could have picked a number of people, but that's where that came from. But he was kind enough to spend some time talking. He actually knew the label rather well, so it was a fun thing. But yeah.
So we'll give some air to John Hanna, though I never met him, and what we meet from that album, and from the 2017 flow. We'll have Whisper Me. I mean, let's see. It's Whisper Me This.
Yeah.
Whisper Me This. That you are there with Fiona Joy, Lawrence Blatz, and Jeff Oster, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. We'll listen to some songs from these albums, and then we'll be back. ¿Qué tan valioso es el programa New Age para ti? Desde 1988 hemos ofrecido música, contenido para el despertar de conciencia, introspecciones guiadas y entrevistas a personajes destacados. Ahora te ofrecemos opciones en distintas plataformas para que lo escuches o lo mires a tu propio tiempo. En estas épocas de grandes cambios, participamos con energía, decisión y temas importantes para sacudir la conciencia que te apoyarán en esta transición planetaria. Te invitamos a convertirte en patrocinador de New Age con el monto mensual de tu preferencia. Tu contribución es muy importante para la continuidad del programa. Puedes aportar a través de PayPal o transferencia directa a nuestra cuenta bancaria. Con tu patrocinio cubriremos los gastos de producción, plataformas pagadas y nos ayudará a expandir los mensajes que ofrecemos. Agradecemos profundamente tu apreciación por lo que compartimos. Estarás presente en cada programa.
Respira profundo y fluye con New Age.
Okay, now we're close to the end now, and I know after these last albums, I read about T-Bone Walk, and I know that some musicians that you were close to probably have left this plane. Like I mentioned T-Bone Walk, Chuck Greenberg, Stu Nevitt also from Shadowfax, and Michael Hedges, Michael O'Donnell, George Winston. Oh my God, and I possibly other colleagues dear to you. How has that impacted your vision of life, and what reflection has it left you with? The passing of such close friends.
I don't think that there's ever been a time. I mean, when you have your mother committing suicide, you're well aware of death. I don't think that I'm one of those people that sort of hid it away. I think I've always dealt with it, and I'm not particularly looking forward to dying, I'll tell you that. But I'm told that you don't worry anymore after you're dead. So I've done what I needed to do. And if it weren't for the fact that I am deeply in love with Susan, and I'd like to spend at least half of an eternity with her, I will probably leave before she does, and I'm very, very conscious of death. I don't think that I'm being depressed or anything. But it's it's inevitable, and you better make peace with it. And I believe I have. I know that I have thought about my life and how I'm not proud of everything I did, God knows. I made many failures, of not purposefully, but somebody that's been hurt by me. I'm nowhere near a saint. I'm coming to a point where I have to be at peace with myself, and I have to acknowledge both the joys and the sorrows and the things I'm proud of and the things I'm not proud of. I don't know. I think it's kind of a brave thing to do. I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but it's a bit of a brave thing to do to take time and to acknowledge your failures, places. And I'm almost in tears. I can feel it trying to well up. Come on, we live these lives, and we did some wonderful things, and we did some crappy things, and I think it's okay. It's okay to take time and actually say to the cosmos, I'm sorry I messed that one up. I really am, and I do. I have regrets. I have many regrets, and I think you have to do that. I'm not beating myself with a whip. But I think coming to peace with yourself requires acknowledging failures and faults. I'm not buried in that. I also am thinking about all that I'm grateful for and all the joy that I've had in this life. But to me, it feels like you have to acknowledge that to be at peace with yourself.
Yeah.
And so at this age, I feel I need to do that.
And so, do you feel like you're satisfied with your musical journey so far? Like, I know you are creating new things every time, but do you feel like, if you recapitulate through all the journey you've gone through your music, that you feel satisfied with what you've done so far?
In terms of music? Oh, I mean, come on, it's 76 times more amazing than I could ever imagine. I mean, I told you this earlier, and it was true. I never thought I'd sell the 300 records, and well, that worked out pretty well. Come on, I still love producing. I'm not doing as much as I had been before. Susan actually wanted me to slow down a little bit so that we could, do more things together around here. I don't know if this is answering your question, but I'm so at peace. Well, listen, don't pretend like I've gone bodhisattva on you. That's not it at all. I still have tremendous regrets and things, but all in all, I've kind of come to the point where, you're going to exit this place, and probably not too far from now, but take the time to think of gratitude. I mean, yeah, you can think about the things you screwed up on. You can feel guilty, and I think maybe that's part of it. But ultimately, you get past that, and then you simply need to acknowledge all the places and all the things and all the people that you are grateful for. And that's I think kind of where I'm at right now, and hopefully, you and I will be talking 30 years from now, but I rather doubt it.
Well, that's beautiful. The gratitude is such a powerful feeling, and to be able to look back and feel that, I think is even more, makes it more powerful, because with all the ups and downs, it's been an amazing journey anyway, in your career and your life as well, with all the ups and downs, because, that's inevitable. So far, I have chosen all the songs from these different albums that we've done. But I'd like to choose from your album Brothers and Positano Songs, any tunes that you would like for us to play as a farewell for today.
I will be honest with you. I never listen to my records.
I know, you told me that.
I, flip a coin.
Okay.
If I didn't think it was pretty good, I wouldn't have put it on the record. I mean, I suppose I could drag and look at what's right here. This, here.
Keith Jarrett, yeah. That's amazing.
I mean, because,
the Colin Concert.
I mean, without Keith Jarrett, the Cologne concert, George Winston's Colors Dance wouldn't have ever happened.
Yeah.
I edited this thing together, and George was actually outraged. And he was really angry. He took two songs, and I said, "What have you done to?" And after he calmed down, he said, "Will, you really like this idea?" And I said, "I really like this idea." And I mentioned Keith. The Curlin concert really had a huge effect on me, and we did that extended version. And George finally, said, "Yes, fine, go ahead." And he's always been grateful that we did do that. I think it. It's not a radio single. No, it's a meditation.
Yeah, amazing.
And I think I managed to, ignore whatever your question was. But to sum up the thing, I've been through some real pain. Everybody does, suicidal, mothers hanging in the shower is not a good thing. The life without the pain, my songs wouldn't be what they are.
Yeah.
And I mean, because there is sadness. I mean, you talk to me. I'm not some sad sax. I'm not a miserable guy. But below the surface, there's stuff there. But the medicine that I had was to be able to write music. And not only did it work for me, but it worked for so many people. And how could you ask for anything more than that?
Yeah.
That people still, how many emails? I'm not saying it's a flood anymore, but a few a week, oh God, I was just listening to this, and, thank you. The number of people who've written, my wife just died, I remember recently a child died, and that my music, come on, could you ever ask for more as an artist than to offer a piece of peace, a place of meditation, and look, if you can touch people's lives in that way,
you've done all that you could have done.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
In the name of everybody who has listened and who will listen, I wanna thank you because of touching us with your music, with your life, with your experiences. It's been wonderful to be able to talk with you. It's something that wouldn't have happened with the technology of the 80s. So I'm very happy that we have this part of technology.
By the way, I really do know how to cut these things short, and I could have gone on talking with you forever. I thank you, because if you don't have somebody on the other side of the net, you cannot give a good interview. If you don't have somebody who is going to make you think, not you're going to say the same damn thing for the billionth time, but if someone like you, and as you did, engaged me and let me really get into the stories, and I thank you very much for that.
Oh, I'm so grateful that you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much, and I hope to see you sometime in Ecuador with Susan whenever we will be in contact through the email, and it would be wonderful to have you here on the way to Argentina, on the way back.
It may actually happen. I wouldn't rule that out as a possibility at all. And let's be sure that you get Susan's record. When it's done, it's very close. She and Tom I think you're just wrapping it up. I haven't even heard most of it.
Oh, amazing! It'll be a surprise then, huh?
Well, I know the woman pretty well. I think it's going to be pretty damn good.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'll be in contact with her on an email and congratulate her for the album. Again, it was amazing. Thank you, Will, for your time. And we will enjoy your music. We have enjoyed your music so far, so we'll continue to play it through the times that we continue with the show.
Well, this new record will be happening before too long. I'll be happy to get it to you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.